for giving this platform to explain about the topics related to the research gaps and the problems in our research study. Uh, Let me start with the topic first. Uh, the topic related to the literature review. We are talking about the literature review when we are writing a research paper. There are two important things we need to understand before when we start or when we are planning to start our research. The first important thing is what, like the how we are going to write the paper and how others are going to perceive it. These are the two different platforms we need to understand. The way we are writing the research paper, sometimes it is not going to be perceived in the same manner by other scholars or the researcher. So for finding out the right way, that whatever we want to communicate in our research paper, it will go the right manner to the right people. It is very much required to understand the literature of the research paper. And the literature review is not simply a scientific tool, it's an art also. Sometimes we apply many scientific tools when we are writing a literature review, but presenting the thoughts in a right manner that it will goes to the right people, it is an art. So like just think about the two important thing, the two research paper. When I was preparing this slide, I read two research papers and it was written over there that when I write my masterpiece, obviously when we are writing a research paper, it is a kind of masterpiece for all of us. Whatever we are writing in our research paper, we spend a lot of days, nights when we are writing a research paper. We are doing a lot of efforts when we are writing a research paper. So for us, it's a kind of masterpiece. But it is important that whatever we want to communicate through our masterpiece, it should goes in the right manner to the right people. The second, at the same year, the another paper published by the researcher, and it is mentioned that what makes management research interesting and why does it matter? So when I was reading a research papers, I found that many research papers published in Scopus Journal, Scopus Indexed, and the ABDC Journal and the Web of Science, and they are talking about the most important thing. When we are talking about the research paper, it depends on the uh, different industries. Like you cannot do the same research for all kind of industries. It varies. And management research is completely different. Why the management research is completely different? Because management research, if you are doing a research in the management field, it depends on the practical applications of those things into the market. Like, for example, the problem of one company or one industry, it is not definitely true that this problem will exist in another country, another industry, and the same company. Means it varies from company to company. And the process of handling the problems can be varies. We cannot unify it that this is the problem and it is existing in XYZ companies, and we can solve this XYZ companies problem in a same manner. It is not possible. So in the field of management, the solution for solving the problems can be different. Like the way you are solving the problem in one company, it can be different from another company, though the problems are same. So when we are writing a research paper, we should keep in mind that which industries we are focusing. We are focusing about the industries related to the management, or we are discussing about the industries related to the engineering field or the medical field. Because like the different aspects are there. What are those three important aspects? The one is what we are focusing about: the management science, mathematical science, and the human science. If we are talking about the management science, so management science is completely different from the mathematical science. Mathematical science involve more tools, more scientific methods for solving the problems. In the same manner, if we are talking about the human science is basically going to cover about management science. So in simple way, Like when we are planning to write a research paper, we must consider all these points, that for which industry we are writing a research paper, and the industry related to the mathematical science or management science or the human science. Now, in my next slide, the fact behind the research paper is what? The research paper, it should not depend in a single thing. The research paper is a combination of everything. The combination of the topic, needs, structure, method, and contribution. Like when we are planning to write a research paper, we must select the topic in a very concrete way. Sometimes we are writing a research paper based on a certain topic, and when we reach to a certain point, we decide, no, we have to change the topic again. It happened, many times it happened. So the selection of topic is one of the key point that your paper is going to be selected or not, your paper is going to be published or not, or your paper will reach to the right audience or not. So selection of the topic, definitely when we are selecting a topics for the research paper, we need to go through to the advancement and the requirement of the industries, that what are the latest requirements in the industries, in which area the people are more interested, what points I can put in my research paper, how my research is going to give solutions of their problems. Because the main motive of writing a research paper, that it is going and preparing some solutions for the problem. And for that, we need to select the topic in the right manner. We cannot select the titles or the topics which we already did or which already obsolete into the market. So the selection of the topic, it is one of the point for the good research paper. The second thing is about the need. As I told you, that we cannot do the research on the topics which already done, which already finished. Every time whenever we are going to select the topic, we need to find out the need of the industry, the demand of the industry, on which topic they want to listen, on which topic, which, like whatever the problems they are facing, they are looking the solution of their problems in the research paper. So when you are selecting a topic, you need to understand, you need to find out the demand of the industry, the need of the industry, the requirements of the industry. And then you have to prepare on the requirements of the industry your structure of your paper. Finally, you can use the methodology. You can use any of the methodologies based on the requirement of your research paper, that you can use scientific tools in your research paper. Sometimes you can write the qualitative research, sometimes you can write the quantitative research. It based on the demand, it based on your topic, it based on your selection of the industry. And the most important thing, who are the contributor in your research? Like for example, if you are collecting the data from the market which is related to your research paper, so they are the contributor in your research. You need to select these things in a very smart way and very selected way. Means you cannot make everyone the contributor in your research paper. You need to identify that what are the requirements of my research paper, why I am going to select a certain group of people, and what they are going to contribute in my paper. So the selection of topic, selection of requirements, need, the structure of your paper, and the contributors with the methodology, these are the important tools when you are writing your research paper. I always feel that being a scholar is more than going to become a researcher. So like if you are a scholar, you feel, means the things will be more open for you. You can go for all directions. You can learn many things. So learning should not stop. And for that, learning should not stop, like feel like a scholar. Instead of becoming a researcher, you must feel first to be a scholar and then go to be a researcher. Now come to the next slide, that if we are talking about the research and the research paper and writing a research paper, so where to begin and how we can start our research paper? What are the points we need to consider when we are writing a research paper? As I told you, that the research paper is not only based on a topic or the methods or the contribution. It's a bit of everything. A good research paper is a combination of everything. But the important point is what? How to proceed in the research paper, how to start the research paper. So I suggest when we are planning to start and when we are planning to write a research paper, we need to go with the three important points. And these three important points are correlated with each other. We cannot segregate these 3 points to others. The first important point, that when we are planning to go for the research or any research paper, we need to find out what are the research gaps and what are the research questions. Your literature review is in between the research gaps and the research question. Your research gaps based on the topic, like whatever research happened, whatever topics already explored by the researcher, you need to find out the gaps in the research papers. You need to read the research papers. You have to go to the research papers of a specific area or a specific topic. Like if you are selecting a certain topic, for example, if you want to do a research based on the stock market, then you need to go and find out the research papers of your interest. Especially if it is you are planning to go for the stock market research, definitely you will check the research papers written in the form of stock market. They mention about something related to the stock markets. Now you have to read those research papers and find out what were the gaps over there. In the same way, when you are finding out the gaps, you need to go to the questions of your research, that what questions you can put. So the research questions and the research gaps can go side by side. You cannot remove, you cannot separate the research gaps with the research question. You have to find out the gaps in the studies, the previous research, and then you need to form your research question based on those gaps. And in between, the literature review comes out. So literature review sometimes helps you in a backward reading and the forward reading. If you are talking about the backward reading and the forward reading, so when we are writing a research paper, we are citing the research papers of others. So forward reading is talking about citations. Like I cited the papers of X and Y. So when I am citing the research paper of X and Y, so I am citing those research papers in a positive way or the negative way of what I am going to communicate in my own research. That is called forward research. So when you are going to put efforts in your research paper and you are putting some points in your research paper, you need to go to the forward reading. Then if I talking about the backward reading, sometimes what happen, we will not be able to understand exactly what gaps written in the research paper. The reason is what? Like the research done by the people, those who are scholar in their research field, those who are proficient or masters in their field. In that case, it is very difficult to understand that what questions they are raising in their research papers. Sometimes it's very complicated way. They are writing their research papers or they are writing their research gaps or literature review in a very complicated way. So you cannot be able to understand that what exactly they want to communicate or what gaps they are mentioning and how to find out those gaps. The second important point, when you check the ABDC list or Web of Science or Scopus indexing, you will find plenty of research papers. Thousands of journals are available related to the specific field. In that case, if you will collect number of research papers, again it will confuse you that what exactly the research gap is. Because mostly the areas, no area, we cannot say that this area is not explored by the researchers. No, it is not true. Like all the areas are already explored by the researchers. We need to find out the gaps in it. And finding the research gap is one of the toughest job for the researchers or the scholars. But for finding the research gap, it is important to read out your literature reviews properly. So you need to go to literature review, read the research gaps over there, and side by side, you have to prepare your questions based on the research gap. Going to the next slide, there are some questions when we are reading the literature reviews. There are some question comes in our mind, And we need to prepare our questionnaire based on those questions. So, for example, if you are reading a research papers related to the stock market or medical science or any of innovations or something like that, you need to keep these things in your mind. The first thing, what to read and what to leave. It is not necessary that you can collect all the literature review of thousands from the thousands of the journal and you are reading to all those journals or those papers. It is not possible, because if you are going to read all the research paper, you will be confused. You cannot be able to reach to the concrete point. You cannot be able to reach to your destination. So in that case, you need to find out that which kind of research papers I need to study and what kind of research paper I have to leave it. I should not go for it. This is the first question you need to ask from yourself. The second important point, how to have best utilization of what is read. So when we are reading a specific research paper, first we need to select a certain kind of research paper related to our research study. The second thing is whatever we are reading, we have to use those research papers in a right manner in our research. We need to go for the best utilization of those research papers. So thoroughly read the research paper. Try to find out the references. Try to find out the citations they have given in the research paper. Try to find out they have given the citations of the research papers in the positive manner or the negative manner. What they are going to criticize over there. Is this the criticism or is this the appraisal or something like that? So if they are going to criticize about any particular before research, old research, you need to find out that, oh, this is the gap over there. Means that research not yet done properly. We can explore that thing in our research paper. So the citation is very important role. The citation plays a very vital and important role when you are reading the literature reviews. The next question comes to you, how do I bring impact in my literature review? Like whatever we are reading from the literature review, we need to impact those things in our literature review. So this is what I already discussed with you, that we have a backward reading and the forward reading. If we are talking about the backward reading, we need to go to the references. We need to check that what references given in the research papers, the previous research papers, and how these references are going to correlate with the citations they have given in their research paper. And then you need to find out that, oh, they use the references, but those references not cited in the same research paper. Oh, it means this is the research gap. Sometimes the references and citations over there, the same citations in the positive manner. So you can find out easily that there is a no gap. They already filled those gaps. Means we cannot work over those kind of research papers or the research topic because it is already referenced and at the same time they cited over there. So finding out the research gap and how those research literature reviews are going to impact your literature review, these are the important things. After that, how we are going to balance the need, importance, and advancement in your own contribution. Like why I am writing a research paper, for whom I am writing a research paper, for what purpose I am writing a research paper, what new technologies I am going to use in the research paper, how I am going to improve my research paper, what advancement I can show through the research paper, what is my contribution in this paper, right? So you need to go with all those questions. You have to answer all those questions when you are reading your literature reviews and before you are planning to start your research paper. Going to the next slide, there are two important points which we need to consider. Like when we are exploring the gaps in the research and when we are exploring the gaps in any literature review, we need to find out that are these gaps already existing in the research literature review or these are already filled by the author. They already find out the solutions for those gaps. So you need to explore it. And on the basis of exploring the gaps, you need to find out, you need to write your storyline. A good storyline while raising existing or new questions means You cannot remove all old questions and you cannot add the new questions in your research paper. You have to take the questions which was not answered in the previous research theories. So for those questions, you need to include in your research paper. You need to find out the new theories. You need to find out the new questions, but you cannot avoid the questions which was not answered in the previous research theories. So these are the important point. The first thing is what? Explore the gaps in the existing research, that whatever research is going on into the market. So what gaps are there in those research field? The second thing is what? You have to draw your beautiful storyline, and that storyline you need to add the new research questions and the old research questions. So you cannot raise the new questions without any explanation and the reference of the old question. Why you are raising those questions? What are the basis of your new questions? So for explaining the new basis of the questions, it is very, very important that you need to show that these questions are based on the previous studies. And these questions are not answered in the previous studies. Going to the next slide, we need to understand that there are some practical consideration, and those practical consideration is actually discussed by Cohen. In the year 2000, Cohen suggested that scale of research question depends on the orienting decisions. And what do you mean by orienting decisions? Orienting decisions means when we are thinking, when we are planning to start the research paper, we have to go with the orientation process. We need to find out the something like there are some obvious questions. There are some theories which are obviously present over there. There are two different kinds of research. The one is orienting decisions based research, and the second one is your scientific research. So in the scientific research, we are using the software tools, methodology, what cost we are bearing in the research, how you are collecting the data, how they are responding over there. That is called scientific me. That is called your methodology. You collect the data, survey, analysis, analyzing. You are analyzing all the sort of the data, right? That is called scientific approach. But before entering into the scientific approach, you need to answer some orienting questions. Orienting questions are always there. Orienting questions are talking about, like, this is very obvious, this is very common, what you are going to research it. There are many things into the market which are in general, it is common. And sometimes the people are thinking, so what? Like it is normal, this is normal platform. Why you are going to do the research on this topic? That day, that point is your orienting decision. You need to find out that these questions, actually, these are not the questions. These are the already obvious things, but still we can go for the research. We need to find out the methods to explore it. So there are certain questions designed by the Cohen, which is related to the orienting decision questions. What are those orienting decision questions? When we are entering into the research field and when we are planning to write the research paper, the first question, there are 9, 10 questions written by the Cohen. So those 9 questions are here, like who want the research? Why you want to go for the research? Are you doing the research only for your university need? Or you are going to write the research and showing your CV, upgrading your CVs, or you are doing a research for yourself, right? So who wants the research? Are you an academician or the research scholar, or you just want to finish your PhD and for that you want to write the research paper? Means it is the pressure from your organization to write the research paper, or you are doing a research paper from your own side. This is one of the most important thing, because these two parameters gives two different directions to your research. The second important question when you are trying to ask from your side, that who will receive the research? whatever research you are doing, this research will go to whom? Are you doing this research for the industries? Are you doing this research only for the sake of means writing in your CV that I have done 100 of research papers, I did research papers in X, Y, Z, 100 of fields. Mean, what is this? Why you? Who is going to receive your research? The third important point is the power of the recipient. The power of the recipient, like you want to write a research paper related to in a particular industry. For example, you want to write a research paper related to the particular industry. But how this research paper will reach to that industry, it depends on the gatekeepers. Who are the gatekeepers? The gatekeepers are the reviewers, the editors. So when we want to communicate the solution of the problems related to in a specific research field or a specific industry, we need to write in the manner that it is going to satisfy the need of the recipients, the editors and the reviewers. Because definitely when we send our research papers to any of the journal editorial field or any of the journal, what they will see first, they will check the content of your research paper, no doubt. They will check the industry requirement also, but in the same manner they will check the marketability of your research paper. Anyhow, the editors or the journals, they are also organization. They are looking their own benefits, they are looking their own profit margin. So sometimes your research paper is so good, you have written so beautiful question, you raised a beautiful points in the research paper, which is very obvious, logical. It is in the demand of the market, it is in the need of the market. Your contribution is 100% in your research paper, but again the point comes out that the editors and reviewers are not ready to accept those research paper because they are not looking any marketability of those products. So the role of the recipient in your research paper is very, very important. So when we are planning to write the research paper, we have to keep those points in our mind. We need to go to the journals also, that, oh, I want to publish my research paper in a particular journal. I need to find out that what specific criteria they mention in the journal, what they are expecting from the authors, what kind of research they are ready to publish, what are their need and demands related to the market. So at the same time you are looking to the demand of the industry, and at the same time you're looking to the demand of the editors and the reviewers related to the specific journal. You cannot start your research papers randomly without investigating the journals. First, you need to explore the journal. You need to find out the right journal for your research paper. Definitely, if I want to write a research paper related to the stock market, I need to find out that who are the journals, those who are writing the research papers related to the stock market first. So it's a long way. Writing a research paper, definitely when we are writing a research paper, it's a sleepless night. We are doing a hard labor to writing a research paper. We are doing a hard labor for collecting the data, applying the methodology, drawing the results, finding the conclusions, writing the results. Many things we are doing in our research paper, but at the same time you need to do some research related to the journals also, that where you are planning to publish your research paper, what are their needs and demand, what exactly they are asking in their journal. So it is one of the important thing that who are the recipient of your research paper, because don't forget that these recipients are the gatekeeper of your research paper. If they are satisfied with your research paper, then definitely your research paper will go to the right place, to the right people and the right industry. The next important point and the next important question is, what are the time scale of your research paper? Time scale is one of the most important thing, that like up to what time limit you are doing your research paper. Like for example, you started your research now and your research is going to be finished, or your paper will finish after 2 years. So when you finish your paper after 2 years, so whatever the things you find out, in the beginning of your research, it will become obsolete into the market. You cannot publish the research paper based on the things which you did in 2 years before. So time is king is one of the important thing which you need to understand and you need to focus very much. Because whatever your research, whatever your thesis, whatever points you are mentioning in your research, maybe your research paper is so good, it is related to the industry need. But if the time lapse, the things will not work out. So, when you are planning to write a research paper, you are not only planning to write a research paper, you need to fix the time frame also. That I have to start a research paper in a certain time period and I need to finish that research paper in a specific time period. So, whatever I am mentioning in my research paper, it will not become obsolete. It will go to the industry directly because this is the need, this is the demand. The next important point, what is the purpose of your research? Why you want to do the research? The research paper, whatever research paper you are writing, it is only to show in your CVs, or actually you are interested in a certain field of your research. You really want to explore those things in your research. For the academicians, for the faculties and professor, oh, I want to do this research because I want to add some knowledge in my classroom studies. I want to discuss some points to my students, and when I'm discussing those points, I want to give some latest examples to them. I want to show them what is the industry need, so they can correlate themselves in the industry requirement. As a PhD scholar, oh, this is my topic, this is my purpose, I am doing this research. The purpose is not only the PhD, I want to know that it that this is the requirement of the industry. I can be able, means I'm trying to put some efforts to sort out some solutions. Like during COVID-19, you can see that many of the companies, many scientific companies, they did a lot of research in finding out the vaccine or the medicines to protect this pandemic. They tried their hard. What was the purpose for their research? Their purpose was to protect the humanity, to protect the human life. And if they were not able to produce the vaccine at that time, and after 2 3 years, if they finish with their research and they will be able to find out the vaccine, so what will be the use of those vaccines? There will be no use of those vaccines because the loss already happened. It was not in the right frame, it was not in the time frame. So the time scale is important. At the same time, the purpose of your research is also very important, that for what benefit you are writing a research paper. You are writing a research paper to sell out to the industry, or you are writing a research paper for the protection of the humanity, or you are writing a research paper to give a new horizon to the new upcoming the generation. The next important point, what questions you can raise in your research paper. Drafting a question is an art. Like sometimes your questions are very genuine, your questions are very correct, you are writing so well, means this is obvious question. But the drafting of question is one of the most important thing, like how you are writing your question, how it is going to reach to the mass, how the people are perceiving your question, how they are able to understand your question. I suggest the more easiest way, the more easy language you can use in your question, you can. Don't try to make the questions in your research paper complicated, because complicated questions cannot draw any results. The complicated questions cannot be able to easily understand by the mass. The research paper is not only for a specific society or a specific group of people. When we are writing a research paper, we are writing a research paper for the masses. We are writing a research paper for the industries. And in that case, our question should be in the simplified manner. It should go directly to the mind of the people. Oh, this is the question. They are raising those questions and they are answering those questions in the research. Next point, the next question is what? What must be the focus in order to answer the research question? Like example, you have 20 questions in your research paper. Now the order, the sequence of your question paper is not correct. Again, your research paper will be incomplete. Because writing a question in a simplified manner, it is as important as ordering the question in a right manner. If your questions are not ordered in the right manner, means it is not in a sequenced in the right manner, it will not give the right result. So some people think that, oh, my paper, I have written such a beautiful research paper. I put all the literature reviews over there. I raised many oriented questions. I have written the questions related to the industry needs, requirement, right? Everything I mentioned over there. It was really a good research paper. It is my research field. I have an interest in this field. I'm not writing a research paper only to satisfy my academic field or my CV. But still, your research paper will not accept into the market, or it is not going to be accepted by the reviewer and the editor. Most of the time, as an editor, I rejected many research papers when I saw the order of the questions are not accurate. Though they have written very beautiful questions, they raised very valid points in their questions, but still the order of their question papers are not valid. They are not answering according to the, your questions should be correlated to another question. It should be sequenced, it should be in order. The next point is what? The cost, human material, physical, administrative, means all those things involved in your research paper, and who owes the research paper. Are you writing this research paper for your own experience, for increasing your own knowledge, or you are just writing a research paper for any specific industry and giving the solution of a specific problem? So these are the questions before writing research papers are very important. You need to go to the orienting decisions, and orienting decisions, when you will reach to those questions, when you will find out the solution of your problems, like you can be able to write the research paper in a right manner. So before starting your research paper, it is important to go to the orienting decision questions, and these are the orienting decision questions. Now come to the next point. When we are writing a research paper, we have some research gaps. So let's begin with those research gaps. Like if we are talking about the gap and the questions go side by side in our research. So we have three different approaches. When we are writing a research paper, we cannot say that, oh, the question, I will write the question first, then I will go to the gaps, or I will write the gaps first, then I will go to the questions. No, it's not a right way. The right way is what? You need to find out the gaps, and at the same time, you need to raise the questions, because gaps and the research questions will go together. They will go simultaneously, it will go side by side or hand by hand. You cannot start with the gaps and then go to the research, or start with the research questions and then go to the gaps. It is not possible. It will not give you the right results in your research paper. So when you're planning to write the research paper, you can go side by side. You can write the gaps, and at the same time, whatever gaps are there, on the basis you have to write your questions. So there are three different approaches which are related to our research paper. You can apply any of the approach. It is not necessary that you have to apply all the three approaches. You can apply any of the research approach in your research paper, but you should apply that approach. Means you cannot, means your research paper cannot be without any approach. At least one approach should be there in your research paper. So what are the three important approaches when we are writing a research paper? The first one is deductive approach. The second one is inductive approach. And the third one is abductive approach. So if we are talking about deductive approach is about top to bottom approach, or it is about the top to down reasoning. Top to down reasoning means what? You start with the general questions and then reach to the specific problem. Start with the general question and reach to the specific problem. That is deductive approach. I can share one example with you. Like for example, there is a one bookshop, one bookstore, and you find that the sale of that bookstore is very low or very less. The people are not buying a lot of books from that store. This is general, like the sale of the particular bookstore is not good. This is general question. Now, from that general question, you need to reach to the specific problem. The specific problem can be the people don't like to go to the physical buying the book. They just like to buy the books online. The second approach is what? The second question you can reach to the specific point. The people having no interest in the books now, they can go and study the e-textbooks or the e-reference books. They don't want to study the hard copy of the book. The third question comes to your mind that the books in that particular stores are obsolete, old, no new books are there, old versions of the books are available only. The four specific questions you can reach that the area where this store is located is very far from my area, or it is in a very suburb area where the masses cannot be reached and purchased. So means in general you started your questions in general that the sale of a particular bookstore is not good, it's very less. This is the general question. But from the general question you reach to the specific problem, and that specific problem says that, oh, there are many questions we can raise. That the first question, the people don't like to read the physical copy of the book, or they don't want to go over there, or the books are very costly, or the books are obsolete. So many questions. So these are your specific question. So this approach is known as deductive approach. So if you are using this deductive approach in your research paper, you need to come from the mass or the general to the specific problem. In the second manner, the second kind of approach is inductive approach. Inductive approach is vice versa of your deductive approach. Inductive approach is talking about the specific problem to the general question. And what is the specific problem? The specific problem, oh, for example, oh, why this person is behaving in this manner? Why this person is his or her attitude in this way? Or the specific question, why this person is so classy in purchasing the goods, why he is or she is going to a specific place, right? So this is your specific question. Now what are the general questions related to that specific question? Maybe that person who is buying a specific items or the classical items, maybe it depends on his economical or her economical condition, or maybe his specific like the taste or the fashion. So now you are reaching from a specific question to the general question. That is your inductive approach. So the first approach is your deductive, where you are going to start with the broad spectrum to the narrow dying space, like you are starting with the general question and reaching to the specific problem. And in the inductive approach, you start with the specific problem and reach to the general conclusions. So these two approaches, it means these are the approaches when we are writing a research paper. We can keep those things in our mind. And the third one is what? Abductive approach. So in the abductive approach, it is surprising, puzzle. What do you mean by surprising and puzzle approach here? Like certain thing happened all of a sudden, and you need to raise some questions over there. Means it was not planned, it was not forecasted, it was not expected, but it happened. So sometimes something happened in the society or in the industry, and on that basis you draw the conclusions, you raise the questions, you try to fill the gap. That is called abductive approach. So in your research paper, you can go for any of the approaches. You can use the deductive approach from general to specific problems. You can go to the inductive approach from specific to the general problem. And you can go to the abductive approach where you can be surprised by the situations and you have to answer those things in your research papers, right? So any of the things, any of the approach you can write in your research paper. The research paper can be a combination of two or three approaches, but it's better to go with at least one approach in your research paper. So it will be more concrete, it will be more clear for the audience or more clear for the scholars to understand that, oh, this was the problem, this is the solution, and what we need to do in the future scope of study. Now, moving to the next slide, like your approaches are based on some questions. So I suggest you, when we are writing to go for the research questions, the questions should be in the hierarchy way. You cannot randomize your questions in your question paper or in your research paper. You prepare the hierarchy of question paper. Hierarchy of question paper means these, like for example, I have a general question, and for the general question I have two or three implied questions. Now the first implied question, again we have a two further implied question, and the third or the second implied question, again I have a another one implied question. So means you are preparing the hierarchy of your question. You cannot write all the questions in a one platform or a one scale. You need to make a question to the sub question to the further questions. It will helps you to writing your research papers, because as I told you that when we are writing our research paper, we need to focus the gaps and the questions side by side. And focusing on the gaps and the research question, it is very much important that you have to prepare, you need to approach, you need to apply any of the approach in your question, and at the same time you need to prepare the hierarchy of your question paper. Your question paper should not be in the horizontal or vertical way, it should be in the hierarchical way. So it will be easier for the researchers or the scholars to answer the questions one by one. It will be easier for you to answer and give the solutions to the society. If you are preparing the hierarchies of your question, you can answer it very well in your research paper. So writing a research paper is an art. Maybe you have beautiful idea in your mind, you can use a fantastic scientific approach in your research paper, but sometimes writing a research paper according to the need, demand, requirement, validity, everything you mention in your research paper, no doubt your research paper is very good, but still it is not going to be published, or it is not going to be accepted by the reviewers and the editors. What is the reason behind it? The simply reason behind it, that your questions are not simplified in a manner, your questions are not going to be hierarchized in the manner, your questions are not direct to the public, it is in the complicated manner. The drawing, the drafting the research paper is an art. So what questions you need to write in your research paper, and how you are design those questions in your research paper, that is one of the most important thing, designing of your question paper. So I suggest you to design your question paper or your questions in your research on the basis of general to the implied and implied to the further implied questions. Going to the next slide, what kind of research questions you can go in your research study? So as I told you that research paper is a bit of everything. Research paper is a combination of everything. It is a combination of concept, context, and the scientific approach. Like whatever concept you want to put in your research paper, it must be clear. It must be clear to the audience that this is the concept of the research paper. The context, in which context you are writing a research paper, it should be communicated in your research paper. And the third important thing, the scientific approach, the methodology, the tools which you are using in your research. So that is one of the important things. First, you need to understand that what is the demand of my research, what is the demand of the industry, and accordingly, you need to select the scientific approach, the scientific tool. As I told you, the different approaches, that deductive, inductive, and abductive approaches are there. So it is not necessary that you are going to use all the three approaches in your research paper. You have to select a very specific thing. You need to find out that my research is related to the specific to the general problem, or to the general to the specific problem, or it's a surprising thing. So and accordingly you need to select your approach. That is your scientific approach. Now your paper should always be like a solve a puzzle, reconcile inconsistencies of the results or inconsistency between the theories and the evidence. Like whatever theories presented by the previous research scholars in their research of the same field, You need to prove those research theories in your research paper. You have to evident those things in your research paper. Like, for example, robotics. If we are talking about the robotics, agro robots, 10, 20 years before, it was an imaginary, it was an imagination. And the researchers were writing about the agricultural robots. Nowadays, it is evident that most of the agriculture sector, they are using the robots, and they are using the reports for in a very scientific manner, and it increased the productivity also. And most of the countries, even the developing countries, are using the robotics in the agricultural field. So the point is what, like, your evidence should be connected with the theory, that whatever you are trying to prove in your research paper, it must be based on the theories which were written by the researchers in a previous research studies. And then you are writing a new theories for the upcoming researchers. Contribute to the ongoing conversation. It is not enough that it is new to you. Like, sometimes you are writing a research paper on a topic which is not new. You cannot say that this area is not explored, or this area has never be like, if someone is saying that, oh, the research never done in that area, that is not existing, it means you are failed in finding out the research gaps. You are failed to understand the literature reviews, because the point is what, all the areas are already researched. The people are still doing the research in all the areas are already explored by the researchers. But if you are thinking that this particular area is never explored by the researcher, it means you are failed to find out the research gap. You are not able to understand the literature review. So you need to go and you need to check the literature review again. Going to the next slide. When we are going to write the research gaps, some of the points we need to consider, and it is related to the literature review. You know the gaps, or you know to explore the gaps. There are two things. One is expansion, other one is exploring. Exploring the gaps means what? The research never done on that area, in that specific area, and I'm trying to explore, or the research not happened in that manner, means they did the research, but the perspective, the idea or the perception or how they perceiving that research was different. So I'm exploring that area, I'm trying to explore that area. The next thing is what? Expansion, expanding the area. Expanding the areas means what? That the research already done, the research already held. Now you are further adding something in your research paper. You are trying to add some new things in your research paper. Means it is already done in the past. And now you are trying to prove some new theories. Like the research already done on the COVID vaccine, and the research scholar presented their theories, and on the basis of theories, the doctors and the scientists, they invented the vaccine for the COVID-19. But again, the expansion programs are going on. Many new researchers are trying to find out, instead of vaccine, can we provide some the spray, nasal spray or the throat spray, or can we make some new kind of things which can help the mass or the general public to protect themselves any kind of these kind of pandemics. So this is called expansion of the research. So first you need to find out that your research gap, you are going to fill that gap. So are you exploring the research, or you are going to expand the research? You need to find out in your literature review. And be careful when you are writing a research paper or reading any literature review. Don't think that the areas are not explored or any of the areas are unexplored. This is what I already explained in the previous slide, that all the areas are already explored. The research already done in all the areas. But if you are not able to find out the gaps, or if you are not able to understand, if you are thinking, if you are very fond of your own research and you are thinking, oh, I'm the one, I'm the first, who is doing the research in that particular field, it simply means that you are not able to understand the research papers, whatever written in that specific field. You are not able to understand the literature reviews of those research papers. So these are the important thing. Next, if it has already been thoroughly investigated, that what, so if you are adding something in your research paper, so always the question comes out, so what? It is very obvious, it is very common, it is nothing new in it. What you are going to add in it? Why you are doing a research on this topic? This topic is very common, means it is not at all a topic. Why you want to do the research over it? So you have to answer so what questions in your research paper also. So what can be a gap of the study, and that so what must be answered by you through the theories, through the scientific approach in your research paper. Going to the next slide, please be remember the important thing is what? Literature review offers you the research question and research gaps. It's your job to present them interestingly and show their relevance. No one is interested in your research. Maybe your research can be interestful for the others, but no one read your research paper unless and until the way you are presenting your research will go to the right audience. Means the presentation of your research paper, the way you are writing your research paper, this is what I told you, that the research paper, writing a research paper is an art, it is a skill. Sometimes you have very important idea, you want to write that idea, you want to prove that idea in your research, and that is the need of the industry, that is the demand of the industry, but you are failed to communicate it to the people, you are failed to create an interest in your research paper. So if your research paper is not creating an interest of curiosity in the mind of the audience, in the mind of the readers, you cannot be able to sell your research paper, because ultimately your research paper will go to the auditors, it will go to the editors, it will go to the reviewers. As a reviewer, as an editor, many times I found out that the research paper really they are talking about a relevant topic, they mentioned the scientific tools also, but I myself rejected those papers. The reason what? They were failed to create the interest in their research paper. So creating an interest in your research paper, writing your research paper in a manner which create a curiosity in the field of the readers or the listener, that is one of the important thing. You have to write the research questions and the research gap in this manner, that whatever gaps you are mentioning in the research paper, you are writing questions over it, that these are the gaps in the research study. I found in the previous research, I found it in the previous literature reviews, and my questions are based on those research, and I'm trying to answer those questions in my research paper. So your research gaps, your research questions, and your findings results are based on those things. So whatever finding, conclusions, and recommendations you are giving in your research paper, it is completely based on your research questions. Your research questions are based on your research gaps, and research questions and research gaps are based on your literature review. Going to the next slide, that some common pitfalls in the research gap which we need to avoid. Like what are the points, like when we are writing a storyline around our research paper, we need to present our research paper with the novelty, the new ideas, right? Because it will go to the reviewer, it will go to the gatekeepers, so we have to present with the new innovative idea. Whenever we are writing a research paper, maybe your research paper you drafted in a very artistic manner, very scientific manner, but there is no novelty in your research paper, there is nothing new in your research paper. Many people wrote the paper in the same topic, same ways, different styles, right? So you have to present something novelty in your topics, something new in your research paper. Then what contribution is made by the authors? Like if the authors are there, multiple authors in your research paper, so what they are contributing in your research paper, what topics they are contributing in your research paper, and how you are going to correlate all those topics in your research paper, that is one of the important thing. Like in your research paper, there are multiple authors, like for example, 3, 4 authors, and all are writing their own points. They are writing the points in a different manner, which cannot correlate, which will not give any concrete result. Again, your research paper cannot be successful. So you need to correlate the questions in a right manner. It doesn't matter how many authors in your research paper, but it very much matter that how these questions raised by the authors correlated to each other. Now go to the next point, how the inconsistencies and tensions explored and bridged, like where we are to and where we want to go. The important point is what? Where we are and where we want to go means what? What are the gaps and what solutions we are presenting in our research paper. So we need to bridge that gap. We need to fill that gap. And for filling those gaps, we need to apply some scientific approaches over there. Who said it is important to be explored? Like why it is important to explore that research paper, why it is important to go for those areas. Like from your side you are thinking that these areas are unexplored, you need to do some research over it, or it is a demand of the industry, or it is a requirement of the industry. So why you want to explore that research? If you want to explore that research only for your own area or only for your own self motive, again it will not going to be published into the journal. So you need to find out that the research paper you are going to explore, you are exploring any area of research, it will go to whom, and is it needed, it is required, it is demanded into the market or not. And the most important thing, give citations to prove your points. If you are not citing a research paper, you cannot be able to prove your points. So for proving your point, it is very much needed to cite, to give citations. Sometimes you can cite the papers in a critical manner. You are not appraising the things. You are analyzing in a negative manner. Sometimes you are analyzing in a positive manner. So it doesn't matter that you are going to analyze in a positive or the negative manner, you are giving the citation in a critical manner. It doesn't matter. The important thing that the citation should be there, because without citation in your research paper, you cannot prove your points. As I already explained you, the forward approach and the backward approach. So forward approach related to the citations in your research paper and the backward approach related to the references in your research paper. Now going to the next slide. Finally, we lead to the some important points, and there are 4 important points in our literature reviews and in our questions, in our research paper. The questions, the variables and the construct of the research paper, the prepositions and hypothesis. So the success of your research paper based on these 4 pillars, like how you are drafting your questions, how you are ordering your questions, what questions are raising, what type of questions you are raising, and for whom you are raising these questions. So this is one of the most important point to make a success of your research paper. The second point is what variables you are, what inputs in your question paper, what variables you are keeping in your research paper, how you are going to use the prepositions over there, what hypothesis you are drawing over there. You need to draw the hypothesis, you need to prove those hypotheses. These are the important thing. So sometimes you lead with the many of the people I saw, like they mention a very huge literature review in their research paper. Again, there is no use. There is no use for writing a literature review of 3, 4, 5 pages. It makes no sense. The point is what? Sometimes the huge amount of literature review which you mention in your research paper, it only increase the number of papers, but it is not going to be worthy for your research. So I request to the buddy scholars, especially when you are writing your research paper, you must write to the point topic, to the point research, literature review. Whether this means a specific literature review which is related to your studies and which is going to help in your research. No need to write the number of literature review in your research paper, because it only increase the number of pages. It will not add any quality in your research paper. So it will increase the quantity, but it will not add any quality. And the quantity paper cannot be accepted by the good publishers. If you want to publish your papers in a right journal and get the right citations, then you have to write the papers in a right manner. You should not write all the literature reviews, because for a single topic you can find 3,000, 4,000 literature reviews. So you cannot write all those 3,000 literature reviews in your research paper. You have to segregate it. You have to scrutinize it. You need to find out the best literature review related to your topic, and then again make it in the small manner that it can be understand it well, it can be easily understandable for the audience and for the right people. So these are the four important pillars in your research paper which you keep in mind when you are writing a research paper. You need to keep focus on those points, and again you need to focus it. Sometimes you are writing a research paper sometimes you are writing a questions in the beginning of your research paper, but when you really enter into the research field in that specific area of research, you find that these questions are obsolete. I have to draft some new questions. I need to start some new questions and the new variables. There is nothing bad in it. You can change your topics, you can change your questions, you can change your hypothesis and variables multiple of time. The point is what you need to reach to the specific topic. You need to find out the right results. Sometimes I saw like especially those who are the academicians, and when they are writing any research paper, sometimes in their college and universities the research units are asking, submit the topic of your research paper. In that case, what happened, the authors submitting a specific topic. Now when they start writing their research paper, they find out like the topics, like I need to change a little bit of my topic, it is out of the topic. In that case, what will happen, some of the authors, because of their university or institutions pressure, they are stuck with the topic. They cannot be able to explore themselves. They are not feeling free in writing the research paper. Those situations are very bad, because we, from the beginning of the research paper, we can only assume and forecast, but when we personally enter inside the research, we can find that the many areas we need to change it again. It included the topic itself. So these kind of freedom should be there. Means you should not focus that you are writing a research paper for your institutions. No, you are not writing a research paper for your institutions. You are writing a research paper because you are academician, you are a scholar, you are a researcher, and this is your job first, to write a research paper, to explore the areas which are not explored, to expand the areas which are not expanded, and those explored and expanded area you add in your knowledge, and those knowledge you can add in your students. So exploring the research, expanding the research, don't put yourself into the inverted commas or the topic or the specific topic or the specific question. You can change the variables, you can change the hypothesis, you can change the questions multiple of time when you are writing your research paper. So your research paper, it should be going to be linked up. Linked up means what? The questions, the gaps, the hypothesis, and how you are going to construct your question paper. These all things to be linked up. These all things should be correlated. Your questions should be related to your gaps, and your gaps are going to be hypothesized. And on the basis of the hypothesis, you can construct your research study. And then on the basis of your literature review, you want to prove those things. So your research paper, as I already told you, that it is a kind of the circle, and it is a kind of bit of everything in your research paper. So your research paper should be linked up with all the points. It should be linked up with the literature review, to the question gaps, the gap of research. Gap of research is going to be linked up with the questions, and the questions, whatever questions you are finding, it should be going to your hypothesis, and finally on the basis of your hypothesis, you are constructing your whole research paper, and then those things you are going to write in your recommendations, your conclusions, and your findings. Sometimes, like I request to my students, and even in the research scholars, those who are sending the research papers in our journal, I asked them, no need to write the finding, conclusions, and recommendations in a one line. Means your findings cannot be your conclusions. Your conclusions cannot be your recommendations. So it should be in a separate manner. Whatever your findings, on the basis of your findings, you are trying to conclude something. And on the basis of your conclusions, you are trying to give recommendations to the new researchers or the future researchers. So how come your conclusions, finding, and recommendations comes together? It cannot. So your findings should be different from your conclusions. Your conclusions should be different from your recommendations, and it should be in order. Again, it should be in order. If you are writing the recommendation first and then you are writing the conclusions and then you are writing a finding, it makes no sense. Means the phrasing of your research paper, the steps of your research papers are not good. Your research, you did a very good research study, but you are not able to draft your research paper. Again, it will be rejected by the reviewers and the editors. So, like, whatever hypothesis I'm drawing in my research paper, I'm giving the findings. I'm trying to find out those things. I'm showing my findings over there. And on the basis of my findings, I'm writing the conclusions. Oh, I concluded in that my research paper. And finally, on the basis of my conclusions, these are the recommendations for the buddy scholars or the new scholars or for the future researchers. So these things should be linked up and these things should be in order in your research paper. Something you must do in your research paper, like hypothesis, proposition, logically developed and based upon the solid theoretical foundation. Solid theoretical foundation means whatever practically you are trying to prove in your research paper, whatever you are showing the results in your research paper by using the scientific tools or methodological tools or any of the tools which you are using in your research paper, it should be based on the theoretical concept, because theoretical concepts are the foundation. And if you're not using those foundations for your research, it means you are not trying to prove your hypothesis. No, you are not trying to conclude your research paper. You are just doing a research for the sake of research. Means you are not a developed researcher. So in your research paper, the research papers, the practical things or the implementing things are based on the scientific foundation. And those scientific foundations you need to present in your research paper. Your research paper based on the valid proof, and it should be tested scientifically, and it should be relatable and reliable. Means you cannot try to prove the things in your research paper which cannot be relatable to the industry or which cannot be reliable to that particular industry. Like if you are talking about any scientific approach or scientific development of medicines in the stock market industry, it will not suit to you. So the research should be scientifically based. The research should be tested well. The research should be based on the theoretical concepts, and those theoretical concepts you are trying to prove in a practical way with the reliability and relatability. So it should be reliable and it should be relatable. Both the things must be present in your research paper. Now, there are some pitfalls which you need to avoid in your research paper. And what are those? Don't present a lengthy literature review, which I already explained you, that you or the way you are preparing your research paper, it should be in a very concrete manner. It should be in a very direct manner. Like, don't put, no need to put a plenty of literature review in your research paper. It will just increase the number of pages in your research. It will not give any ideas to the public. It will not give any fruitful results to the public. And it is a complete journey. Why writing a research paper is a journey? Because it starts with your orienting decisions and then it will reach to the scientific approach. So when it's a journey, because when I'm planning to go for the research, when I'm planning to do and write a research paper, I have to ask many questions from myself. And those questions are orienting decisions, orienting questions. You need to write those questions. Then one by one, you need to answer those questions in your research paper. So it's a journey and it starts from 1 to 100. The next important thing is what? Like, if you are spending a lot of, definitely, when we are writing a research paper, we cannot write a research paper in 48 hours, right? So when we are writing a research paper, it takes a lot of time, efforts, our sleepless nights. In the same manner, if you are doing a research in a specific field, you need to do the research related to the journals also. That which kind of journal where we can publish, what are the necessities of those journal, what are the criterias of those journal. So you need to go over there and find out those things. Each propositions and hypothesis must be drawn from the related set of studies. So how you can go for this hypothesis, like how you can get the ideas, like if you're writing a research paper and you want to know that this area is actually explored or expanded or not, or the research gaps are there or not, what you can do, you can go to the spatial issues. Like sometimes you are not writing any research paper for the special issues. No matter. There is nothing needed like every time you will write some research paper related to the special issues or for the journal. Sometimes you need to find out, go to the special issues and see that on what topic they are going to write papers. Like the why they are using this word special issues, on what theme they want to explore the research. So that theme can give you the ideas and the hint that these areas are not yet explored. Sometimes you need to go to the people, those who are those already did masters or they did research in that field. So the first important thing, you need to read the research papers, you need to read the literature reviews. The second thing, you can check the special issues related to the specific area, and you can get the idea that what gaps are there and they want to explore those gaps in the special issues. The third important thing which you can do in your research paper, you can check the editor's speech or editor's message in the special issues. Because in the special issues, sometimes the editors clearly mention that what they are expecting from the audience, what they are expecting from the authors, what they want that the author should write and mention in the research paper. So you can go for those things also, you can check all those things over there. And the most important thing is what? Keep up to date. Don't forget to include the important and latest studies related to the research field. If you are not going to write the latest thing in your research paper, be sure whatever the quality of your research paper, whatever the beautifully you drafted research paper, whatever the good quality of language or the scientific tools you used in your research paper, it will not go to publish, because your paper is not giving any novelty, your paper is not up to date, your paper is not talking about the latest technologies, and the things are already done, the things are already obsolete for the market. So what is new in your paper? Why should I read your paper? Thousands of papers are already there in the market. And why should I publish your research paper? Because I already published many research paper in my journal related to the same topic, but they presented in a different manner. So important thing is what? Like you must update yourself. You must know that what is the latest trend, what is the latest area, what are the latest technology or specific studies we can add in our research paper. Now, this session is about the question answer session. I'm done with my presentation, and I hope so that you people are little bit means like I'll be able to explain you that what you need to put in your research paper, how to go to the literature review, how to check the literature, the research gaps, and how you can answer those questions in your research paper, the novelty of your research paper, how you are going to draft your research papers according to the question format, and the most important thing, the question, your research paper must apply any of the approach, either it's a deductive or the inductive or the abductive, any of the approach must be there in your research paper. So the things which I saw as a reviewer, as an editor, many times I saw the papers are really very good. Mention very valid questions in his or her research papers, but still we were not able to publish their research paper. We were not able to comment rightly on their research paper. The reason behind, many of the reasons, as I reasons, that they are not able to explore the gaps. The thing is what, they are not able to answer the questions. The questions were there, and the same questions they are writing in their own research paper, and they cannot be able to answer those questions. It makes no sense. So these are the points we mentioned. Thank you so much. I request to Professor to go for it.
Thank you, Nicole. It's amazing presentation. So please, anyone has any question? In chat or Mr. Sarmed?
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Prof. Good evening, Prof. Athir, Prof. Shaista.
Welcome.
You give a lot of information, Prof. It's a quite very difficult to follow you with the high English level. Actually, each slide need an explanation, maybe most of us. I quite didn't understand. Maybe I missed some 5 minutes in the beginning. The difference between the researcher and the scholar. If you can explain me, maybe.
Yes, definitely. Like if we are talking about the scholars and the researchers, basically the researchers are what the researchers are doing. The researchers are doing the research based on others' theory. Like whatever the areas of research already done, they are exploring those areas. They are trying to prove the points and the theories based on other research. But the scholars, they are creating their own views. They are creating a new ideas in the paper. So this is what my request to all my buddy researchers and the students also. Instead of feeling like that you are the researcher, feel like a scholar, that these areas are new for you. So you can put your own efforts when you are writing a research paper. You can feel that, oh, I have to do something own. I can perceive this idea in my own way. Instead of influenced by the other researchers or other authors, you need to explore your own way. That is one of the important thing. Otherwise, you cannot draw any results. So for me, I believe that it's better to feel like a scholar instead of behaving like a researcher first.
I'm sorry, I didn't represent myself. I'm a PhD student in the first semester. Sarmad from Turkey. I'm Iraqi actually, and I'm studying in Turkey in nanotechnology. You said how to know the criticize in literature review. How to know this? You spoke about criticizing in literature review.
Criticizing literature review.
Criticizing, yes, yes.
Criticizing, the point is what, like sometimes what happened, whatever written in the literature review, the next researcher, sometimes when they are citing, because we what we are saying, that we have to put the citations in our research paper. So it is not necessary that whatever the citations given by the author, it is always in a appraising way. Maybe I'm not convinced with your literature, I'm not convinced your theory that you proved in your research. So but I cited your research paper, and on that basis, I am writing in my research paper, oh, I'm not convinced with this theory, though it is written in some other research paper. And sometimes what happened, one point I forget to tell all of you regarding the cross citation. Cross citation means what? What happened? I cited the research paper of, assume that Mr. X cited the research paper of Dr. Shaista. And Dr. Shaista's research paper, she cited the research paper of Y and Z. Now, Mr. X writing in his research paper, and when he's writing his research paper and when he's citing his research paper, he mentioned that I read the research paper of Dr. Shaista, and she cited the research paper of Y and Z, and she mentioned that these are the gaps of the story or gaps of the research. We cannot put the cross citation. If you really want to explore the things, you need to go to the original research paper. Instead of reading the Dr. Shaista's research paper, you need to go to the Y and Z research paper and find out that what they actually mention in the research paper. Because sometimes we are citing the research paper and we criticize the paper. Maybe you will not criticize the paper, you will be influenced with the point or the theory. So your views can be different from my views. You got my point? The views
Yes,
can,
yes.
as an author, we are the researcher, we are the scholars. So our views can be different. But if you are going to cite the research paper of someone else from my research paper, so you will be influenced by those things. So these things should be avoided. These things should be avoided. The cross citation must be avoided by all the authors.
Excellent. Yes, I understand. You spoke about a gap in our research. Can you give us some example about it? Like what?
The gap of the research studies, like it shows, for example, we can take the example of this COVID-19 also, because this is the trend and this is what going on, and we recently came out from this pandemic, or still we are not completely came out from this specific pandemic. So we can say, like, the gap of the study, it shows that the use of COVID vaccines affect differently on different person. Means the human body reacts in a different manner. Some of the COVID vaccine, means the COVID vaccine reacted to the specific group of people in a positive manner. The same vaccine affected the other group of people in a negative manner. And some of the people not received any kind of COVID vaccine, but they are healthy, fine, though they are old citizens, they are kids, we can say that the kids having a more immunity power, so we can remove this point. But the old citizens or the senior citizens, many senior citizens, they never received the COVID vaccine, but still they are safe, they never they never got this kind of disease. So the point is, what this is the gap we need to find. Are these research, are these vaccines are actually useful for the human body, or it varies from the particular set of people to another set of people, or it is just a normal vaccine? We cannot remove this disease from the society, just like AIDS. Though we have a vaccine of the AIDS, but you cannot eliminate from the world, it remain as it is. So we need to find out the gaps, and the gaps are the basis of your further research. And that's why many of the scientists are trying to, instead of the vaccines, they found that the negative effects on the human body of those vaccines, they are trying to find out some the nasal spray or the mouth spray, that because the entry of the virus is from your nose, or from the virus comes from the air, it's an
Yes.
airborne disease. So for the
Yes.
airborne disease, why the vaccine is required? You need to go for the spray evening. So we need to find out the gaps, and those gaps means, like, whatever happened and whatever not yet proved in the research paper, we need to prove it in our research, and that is the gap.
Thank you very much. That's all my question. Thank you very much, Prof. Shaista.
Most welcome, most welcome. Yes, Professor. Professor?
Sorry, Dr. Zainab Shakir, please. Dr. Zainab Shakir.
Yes, I'm here. Hi. Thank you for this amazing presentation. Thank you, Dr. Shaista. I think I pronounced the name good.
Thank you.
To begin with, First question, the introduction, should I put the research, should I put a citation in it, or should be my view about the subject, the topic of the research?
No, citation is required. The citation is required in your research study, because when you are writing a research papers, how you will prove your points, how you will tell to the audience or the other listeners or the readers that these points are, I'm not the one who is writing these things. I'm not the one who's having the curiosity about these things. I'm not the one who is doing a research over this. These things are already there. The validity, how you will prove it, how you will show that these things are valid questions, these things are based on a valid things, valid topics, the topics are completely valid, we need to do the research, we need to further research. For proving your points, the citation is important.
Thank you. Dr. Ahmed Abdul Wahab.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Yeah, this is Ahmed Abdul Wahab, PhD of entomology. I'm a researcher at the Agricultural Research Center, Plant Protection Research Institute in Egypt.
Welcome.
Welcome back there. My question to you, Ashta, I have a little comment. During writing a review article, I didn't need to come up with novelty things. Sometimes I need to express my own opinion or my point of view. I don't need to come with something novel. Otherwise, I can go with my opinion, and just I need to express, solution for some problems or something like that. So I can write my review article without coming with novelty, but at the same time I need to connecting dots or just find solution or express my opinion. And I have also a question for you. How about the negative results? How about if I came with negative results and just I hypothesized a theory and just I need to prove it with my scientific article? So what about if I came with negative results? Should I need to discuss that negative results, or just I need to avoid it, or just express that way everybody shouldn't follow in the future? Thank you.
It's a really very good question, Ahmed. Though you asked only the one question, but I want to answer the previous one about the novelty. As I discussed the point novelty, what I mean to explain the novelty in the presentation, that the points which I mentioned in the research, in my research paper, I mentioned in a very right manner, to the point, as you said that it is review questions or review research paper, and I just mentioned my points, my views. I agree. I do agree, 100% agree. But I'm talking about the market. I'm talking about the journals, those who are publishing our research paper. They are looking, these journals are actually, they're doing their own business. And in those business, like if they are not finding the things, the marketability of the product, they are looking. For us, the research papers are masterpiece. For us, it is very near to our heart. When we are writing a research paper, we put all our heart in the research paper. But at the same time, for the publishers, for them it is a product, and they need to find out what is the marketability of that product. So as a business point of view, as a businessman, their perspective are completely different. They are not thinking about that this is an art, this is a masterpiece, they are the research, and this is very direct to the points. No, they are looking out some novelty, because they are least bother about the research, because you are the master in your area. No one can interfere in your area. You did the research. No one can challenge in your research. But the point is what? As a businessman, they just want to sell your research paper and get the money from the market. And for that, they want it should be with the novelty. So sometimes you are not going to put any novelty in terms of any ideas or anything, but you can prepare your research paper in a manner that it looks like a novel. Means the way, like there are different ways to communicate to the market. There are different way to communicate to the market. So your communication can be a novelty. It is not necessary that some idea, some points or some features you add as a novelty. You can communicate in a different manner, so it can goes to the public. You got my point?
Mhm.
So because I'm talking about the point of the editors and the reviewers, they will never consider your research paper as research paper. For them it is a product, and for them they need to market. The second point is
Yeah.
what?
Yep.
The second question you raised, like what happened if my answer comes, I prove something in my research and it comes as, first of all, you need to check your research paper and negative both. It is necessary always come as a positive result. It can be negative. Like just now, I have answered already for the vaccine, the COVID vaccine. Though they presented that the COVID vaccine is the best vaccine for the people, for the humanity, it is going to save the life. But that vaccine affected different people, reacted in the different body in a different manner. So again, it's a failure of the research. You can say that the points, whatever they proved in the research, it is not true. So sometimes the negative results come out in our research paper. You need to communicate those things also. It is not necessary that in your research paper, whatever you are trying to prove, it will be proved. It will be come out as a negative answer also. So you can keep it as it is.
Thanks. Dr. Zainab, please.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Thank you
evening.
very much, Mrs. Anwar, for this great and informative lectures. Actually, you mentioned a very important topics and points in the research. Also, you brought our attentions to some of them and remind us of the others. My question is, a month ago, I received an invitation from one of the publisher companies to write a chapter in a book. And really, I am very confused because I was so excited to have this opportunity. Writing a chapter in a book, it is not an easy thing. And I actually started searching and writing. And unfortunately, when I mentioned this to my friends who work in the educational institutes or universities, they warn me. They say this is maybe a scam, and it's better not to go forward with them. So I want to ask your advice for this thing, please, because I'm really confused and the deadline, what can know scam is good.
I hope Professor Haddad remember it. It is about the predatory journals and the cloned journals. So I already mentioned the points like how to identify the predatory and the cloned journals in the academia. There are many points, there are many topics, there are many ideas through which you can identify the predatory and publishers and even the conferences also. Now in your case, as you mentioned, you got an opportunity, you got an invitation to publish your paper or your article or your chapter in a specific book. I suggest you need to go to the website of that. You need to go to the website of that publisher. You need to check the editors of the publisher. You need to find out if the editors are only mentioned with their names without the specific information that from which university they are working, under which capacity they are working, what are their email IDs, the official email IDs. So you have to work it. You need to find out first thing. The second thing is what? The website. You need to collect all the informations related to the publishing house, all the information related to that invitations. So there are, it's a completely a very wide topic, doctor. So like I cannot be able to cover it, but I can give you a small thing. You need to do your own job to find out that this publisher is right or not. Or do one thing, you can mail me the name of the publisher. I already mentioned my email ID. I already submitted my email ID to Professor Haddad. So you can send me
That's
the
good, yeah.
email. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
So you can mention the name of that publisher or the book. So I can try to find out from my end that are they predatory or the clone, or are they genuine. So I will try my best and answer you as quickly as possible.
Thanks. Thanks.